Did you have your parents leave you with your teenage sister, going out of town mere hours after a gateway to a demon realm opened up in your backyard? Did your sister's friends embarrassingly levitate you at their party, making you cry and run off in shame, pants possibly bepissed? Were you then left all alone after your best friend, who knew way too much about this demon shit, and sister were both sucked into the hole and forced to face off against a massive demon who came up through the floor of your house, doing unimaginable damage to the family home, which would surely leave your parents pretty pissed and probably financially devastated, though that plot point was left completely unresolved? If so, you must have stumbled into the Unkind Rewind, where we were treated to the 1987 entry into the kid horror genre, The Gate.
Get to the chopper!
You know what you are? You're one of those little fancy lads, aren't you?
Link and I are cruising the mountain, bro, and we figure we'd squeeze a little juice.
Salutations! I'm Josh Dugan, coming to you from the land of 10,000 lakes, where I've been stockpiling rocketry to be prepped for Demon Doomsday. Joining us from Devil's Kitchen is my co-host, Sean McGrath. Have you been hoarding random demonic records in the hopes that you'll be given your time to shine, Sean?
There's a lot of guys who sell these records on the street, and it doesn't hurt to flip through them to see what kind of like arcane European metal they have. Because you never know what those liner notes might be able to help you with. I'm wondering if you had to go to Wisconsin to stock up, Josh, or if they have demon killing rocketry in Minnesota.
I had to go to Wisconsin. Yeah, I've been making the 30-mile trip. And this week we are joined by our special guest who had not seen The Gate since his childhood spent stealing cable and illegally calling 900 numbers for future Oscar winners. Coming to us from Stumptown, where he's hopefully not been haphazardly ripping stumps from the earth and putting us all at risk, Daniel H. Wilson. Daniel, why don't you tell the audience who didn't catch last week's installment a little bit about yourself?
My name's Daniel Wilson. I live in Portland, and I'm a science fiction author. I guess I write novels, I write screenplays. In a past life, I got a graduate degree in robotics. Promptly used it to write science fiction only. So I only create fictional robots. It's much easier. It's quicker.
Yes.
Not as profitable as it turns out. It's fun fact.
Sure, yeah. Do you regret that at all? Do you regret not going down the actual practical robotics route?
I really don't.
Okay.
I think about it sometimes, but my life is pretty good. I got no complaints, and all I got to do is get up and write science fiction every day. So. I don't know. For me, that's basically paradise.
Now I saw that you have a book coming out either late this year or early next year. How's the progress on that going?
It's going well. It's called Heliopause, and it takes place in Indian country out in Cherokee Nation, where I grew up, and it's basically kind of a native first contact story. So
nice.
A non-human entity shows up, Indian country, and it kind of shakes our faith in what reality is. It's pretty far out there. So I got a draft of it. I'm doing final drafts. I'm about to submit it or send it back to my publisher, my editor.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything's on course for it. I'm excited.
Cool.
Right. I didn't even think about the danger that Daniel was in, being in a city affectionately known as Stumptown.
I know. Are there just hellmouths just waiting to open up?
Straight to the gate. Yeah, well, they ripped them all open and they built buildings on top of them all. So it's more of more of a poltergeist scenario.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just fraught with so many like old pioneer ghosts. I mean, the workmen would probably just be loggers, I imagine. You would just have these loggers kind of stuck in your walls. That would have
not to mention all the original folks who were living here. All the tribes that were here.
Oh yeah.
So, there you go.
Those
plenty of layers of ghosts. Yeah.
I think they've been immortalized with street names. I think they're okay with that.
I don't know. I'm on all this. I live in the Simpsons street names, So my kids all go to the school that Matt Groening went to, and so we live. I'm just off Burnside, and then after that, there's there's Quimby and there's Flanders Street and
Yeah,
so
Lovejoy.
forth. So
Lovejoy.
they're
Yeah.
does not a strong native
I
feel
was
to those names.
Flanders
Up in the-
Flanders isn't a native
Flanders.
surname?
It's the
Yeah,
first
the
people.
famous first.
I actually was up on
First Nations,
Klickitat and Siskiyou,
Oh, okay, yeah,
up
sure.
in Northeast.
Well, yeah,
So
anywhere you go. But my favorite, my son and I were just actually making fun of this because we had turned from Carruthers onto Terwilliger, and we were like, that these people were fancy.
Yes.
This guy. You name your kid Terwilliger, he's getting a name. He's getting a street named after him one of these
well,
days.
I would argue that Sideshow Bob was a little fancy.
Yeah, that's true.
That was his last name.
That was his last name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, I didn't even put that together.
Yep.
Matt Groening.
What won't you steal?
Used up all the street names around here. I can't use any of them now.
So as we discussed in last week's discussion pre-interview, I don't know why I said discuss twice there. I didn't write it.
Well, you said piss twice in the intro, and I was going to give you props for that because you used a figurative and a metaphor. And
I said
literal.
be pissed. Yes.
But
Be
but
pissed.
piss showed up in both a literal and a figurative sense. So
Yes.
Josh always tries to work in pissed
And be pissed.
and be pissed.
Yeah.
It worked here.
Yeah. But pissed is one of my faves. So as we discussed in last week's pre-interview, I'd never even fucking heard of this movie. Sean, what was your awareness of the gate before recording these episodes?
Yeah, I was aware of it. I was scared of it. I knew to kind of keep a safe distance because whether it was a trailer, whether it was popping in the room on a sleepover or someone's house when it was on, I had a couple images from this movie that I knew would probably get inside my head come nightmare time.
Uh-huh.
And so I stayed away from it. I honestly had a little caution going into it now.
That's
Because
fine.
I was like, oh shit, this is gonna fuck me up, isn't it?
On the rewatch, I was like, oh shit, I watched this as a kid. It gets a little bit much in
Sure.
places. I was like, oh my God.
it
no
does
wonder
get a
I
little much.
had this under my skin.
But yeah, I was aware of it. It had kind of this
Uh-huh.
legendary aura about it
Sure.
as a kid.
Child nightmare fuel. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Daniel, you mentioned very early on in regaling us with what your youth was like, that you were kind of the typical 80s latchkey kid. Now that we've all just seen The Gate, it starts with Glenn having a latchkey nightmare. And very quickly, the parents have fucked off for a 3-day weekend. Do
Yeah.
you think that The Gate's central concern with kids left to fend for themselves affected how it played to young latchkey Daniel?
I think that it was, I don't think they were making any sort of like big statement by leaving those kids alone. That was simply what life was like in 1987.
Sure.
That was a weekend that like millions of kids were
Right,
having
yeah.
in the United States. So I think it's funny now that it's a statement, right? You're like, what? Those parents left the well, hell yeah. What did you think was going on like all
Yeah.
during the 80s? So like
Uh-huh.
that wasn't a big deal. I think really them being alone was representative of the life
Yeah.
I was
Mhm.
living, and then also kind of represented like the worst thing that could happen, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
all the elements of this movie like were the major sort of if you've got a play of like my childhood
Mhm.
and you're carting out all the props and the backgrounds, it's like the backyard, the treehouse, the dog, the sibling, the older high school kids partying, like being alone at home, just like all of that stuff was really just those were all the major moving pieces of my childhood. So
Sure.
to see them put together in that juxtaposition, which is kind of terrifying, I think that's got to be why this spoke to me so much as a kid.
Sure, sure. Now you talked about the negotiation that was going to the video store with your brother.
Yeah.
He was 2 years your junior, right?
Yeah.
Do
And he
you
didn't
re-
get bigger than me until about, age 11. So,
Okay. Do you remember if he watched this with you when you rented it?
he absolutely would have.
Okay.
I didn't catch up with them. I
Okay,
should have
okay.
given him a call. But yeah, he definitely would have watched this with me. I mean, I would not have watched this show alone, that's for sure. I also
Right.
wouldn't have told him that I wanted him there. that's for sure too.
Sure.
But
Right. You have to
I
walk
know.
Can't show weakness.
you have to walk that line.
Yeah, back then anyway. Back then.
Yeah. So you don't recall whether it was nightmare inducing for him?
No, but he literally there was a period of time where he did have like literal night terrors. So
Okay.
I sure hope I sure hope not, because like yeah, he would get really freaked out.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
night terrors preceding this kind of movie watching, night terrors right after this. Like it was something that just kind of was part of his childhood.
Yeah, that was just part of something I remember happening with him when he was, yeah, probably 8 or 9. They went away, thankfully, because that stuff is super frightening for everybody.
And then there was no kind of every kid's kind of different growing up. Sometimes there's a negotiation with the parents. Sometimes they have to kind of read the back. But like, was this a easy get for you? Was this something that you attained on your own, or was this something that the parents had to okay?
I don't think my parents were too worried as long as the videos didn't come from behind the beaded from
Right,
behind the
right,
beaded
right.
wall, you know.
That's
There's
a
no going
whole.
back there.
Although
That's a whole other thing.
I will say from that section, there's another movie called The Gate, which is terrific. It's
Yeah,
actually it's really
I
good.
bet.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a work of art. Yeah, no. So as long as it wasn't from there, I think we pretty much had free reign if we could agree. And a lot of times that was there was turn taking, and then there was also just fist fights. You know, like whatever was going on that week, that would have been how it got chosen.
But you would feel safe saying like this is something that like they weren't sitting and watching kind of over your shoulder on.
Oh no, my
Okay.
parents would never have been watching this. They
Yeah.
wouldn't have cared. They would,
They would have left.
yeah.
They would have
They were
left.
watching
Just-
Dallas
it
or
would have been
whatever.
They were there to kind of see the like the relationship with the parents, and then once her Glenn's like Lindsey Buckingham looking dad left, they would probably leave the room too.
By the way, I mean, I feel like the Duffer Brothers saw this show. Am I wrong? Like,
Yeah.
this is
No, I
like
think that
this
stands,
is
stands to reason
Stranger
they could have.
Things in a nutshell. Like, if you, it feels so Stranger Things to me. Whenever there's
Especially
the
with
tornado shooting up in the sky,
Mhm.
and you got the kids about it was like,
you got the big
oh,
sister
the
dynamic
backwards
too.
the backwards record player, like they're dealing with all that D&D Satan stuff
Yeah.
that was really big in the 80s, and all the
Mhm.
parents were super scared of like the devil and everything. Like
Yeah,
it
definitely
invoked, like,
leaning into
all
the
of the
satanic
memes.
panic of the 80s.
Oh
Big
yeah.
time.
There's
Yeah.
like the satanic panic, there's
Mhm.
like I don't know, the other world coming into our world with the
Yeah.
creatures, and like I don't know, it felt like the dorky young kids, and then the older siblings.
See, the
Um,
irony of that though is that this would be kind of the antidote to the satanic panic, because nothing that they really did, like with, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't like knowing about the demons kind of save the world? So like what Terry was able to
yeah.
kind of piece together through his records, etc. I mean, that's the stuff that like parents in the 80s are worried about, like kids not learning. And hello, they
Yeah,
saved the world.
get yourself trained up early. Get them exposed. I mean, it's true. Terry saved the day. I mean, look, like I said in the pre-interview, I feel like there were elements. This movie stole shit from everywhere, and
Oh yeah.
like that kind of. So there was like archetypical in some places, but it just failed to like. There wasn't quite enough seamlessness. It didn't quite all make sense. You know, like why did Terry, who's like 11, have all these records and stuff and all this satanic
Why
stuff
would
around?
his
Like,
dad have
didn't
brought them
quite make
from
sense.
Germany or wherever the fuck he brought them?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a
that
bit
was
of a
like
stretch.
that is very convenient.
And then they take like they like just that stuff is just out of the blue, right? So many things happen. The
Mhm.
eyeball, I mean, just completely out of the blue. And you're like, oh, well, I mean, that's neat, but it doesn't make any sense. And then they spend like 15 minutes telegraphing the rocket, you know, like
Yeah,
the
yeah. Mhm.
rocket. Every 5 seconds is goofing around with a rocket, you know.
And again,
So
why
I
does
feel
that
like,
work?
well, because the rocket was a gift from his sister, and it was
Oh,
like
it's
it
love or
represent the
something?
love and
Uh-huh.
yeah, the love and
Oh
hope. I mean,
boy, yeah.
I get what they were going for, but like, God, it was just barely. It was
There was a lot
miscalibrated.
of checking spaghetti against the wall with a movie like this, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of
I
like,
want to
let's
write
just
a
put,
remake of this movie.
let's just
Do it
see.
right.
That's what
Well,
people
Alex
should
Winter
approach
wanted
it
to
with.
also, didn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Winter.
Alex Winter,
Or he
did
was
you
going to
see
do a
his other-
sequel, technically, but
The Alex Winter is the Bill or the Ted from Bill and Ted, right? He's the
Yeah.
one
He's
that's
the
not
Bill.
Keanu.
yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, Alex Winter, I grew up watching. Oh God, was it Liquid Television? Is that what he did on MTV? He had a comedy show with the burrowing bishop and like, I mean, Eddie the Flying Gimp was literally the name of one of his things. It's super offensive now, and I admit probably shouldn't even say the title. But like Alex Winter is twisted, man. His sense of humor
Yeah.
really appealed to me when I was this age. And that stuff you should go. Oh, Idiot Box is the name of the show he did.
Okay.
Idiot Box. It was a contemporary of Liquid Television.
Mm.
If you go look up a couple Idiot Box sketches on YouTube, you will have your mind blown.
And he was a writer.
But
on
I
it?
wouldn't. I would never. He acted. He was the host at the first episode. He shows up and he's got he's got a bomb drilled into his forehead, like with a drill. And there's blood streaming down his face, and he's like, "You guys have to laugh, or they're gonna blow my head off." It's like so crazy. There's another one. I mean, it's beyond like offensive. It's beyond crazy. So with Alex Winter, he made that up one other movie, Freaks.
Yep.
Which was also like horribly weird and frightening. So I wouldn't trust that guy to do much, although I personally love him.
I mean, he's done good like documentary stuff more recently. He did that Dark Web.
Maybe
one.
that was when he was young. He had that
Yeah.
twisted sense of humor that I agree. I had it too.
Now we're gonna throw to the first clip here in a sec. Before we got into the questions about your history with a film, you wanted to preface everything with your affinity for the Ray Harryhausen style stop motion animations. I'm gonna throw to that here.
Yeah.
I will also just say up front, I was young enough to where this was like back in the age of like Clash of the Titans, like that was the level of, it was like claymation. What's the guy's name? Harryhausen or something?
Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah. So this was, the claymation appeared to be 100% full reality to me at this time. So when I saw anything that was like that, I felt like it was the greatest CG that you can imagine. I was fully immersed. This is a videotape of something that really happened. So
Nice.
I was probably like 8.
Okay, so were there any moments on this pass where you felt like you were watching a historical document put to celluloid?
No, these effects were incredible. I was so blown away by how good it is. It held up.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. It was not claymation.
I know, it was forced perspective. It was forced perspective.
It was they
so
did a
much
little bit
better
of
than
everything,
claymation.
right? Like they did.
There was a
with the big
claymation
bad
bit
guy.
with the arm getting cut off in the door, but most of it was those
They're turning
guys.
into worms.
Yeah. Now this was. It's the same FX supervisor, Randall William Cook, who was coming off of The Thing, Ghostbusters,
Oh,
Fright
really?
Night, and Poltergeist 2.
Wow.
So
Holy-
he
yeah.
went on to
There you
do.
go.
He went on to do like Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
Wow.
really?
Yeah. So
I
this is
believe
the
it, 'cause
this is him cutting his teeth on the forced perspective shit.
I went back and watched, going back and watching the gate, I was like, I'm gonna be totally underwhelmed. And then I was like, A, this is scary. And like B, this doesn't look fake. This looks like real, except for you're right, the little worm part. But I was like one tiny little part of the
like
the
when
movie,
they
so, yeah.
so it's I was really impressed just with how many different things they were trying here, because you also have you kind of have the ghost paranormal stuff too that mixes in with this. It's not just kind of demon centric. You have all this stuff that like
The weird parent shit.
the weird parent shit. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah, God, the weird parents. That's where
The head like falling out, like the head crumbling.
God, his own dad tries to
Uh-huh.
hug him, and then his face does the whole the face melt thing from Indiana Jones, like
Yeah.
happens all over the kids. The cat's dad's melting in his lap, like God.
I
horrible.
think we knew something was going to happen as soon as Terry started dancing with his dead mom, but I could not predict that he would look and it would be the dead dog. Like that was, I mean,
By the way,
if I'm watching
killing
that
a
as
dog.
if I'm watching that as a kid, that fucks me up.
They
Like,
killed. I mean, that dog looked like everybody's dog. You know,
yeah, but
it's like
but Daniel, did you see how much people food that dog was eating?
Yeah, that party killed that dog.
That fucking dog.
That party
was
killed that dog. There's no fucking way that
gross.
party didn't
Yeah.
kill that dog.
You're right. That's a great point. I didn't think about that. That's why no one was freaked when the dog was just dead. They go, "Oh, he's old." They set it up. They said, "Oh, he's 97, you know, in
Yeah.
dog years.
Uh-huh.
He's a goner."
Yeah.
They said
I
it
guess
a
I
lot
should
of
have known.
times.
I'm really
They did,
surprised
and-
at that party that they invited the girl that did the medium stuff. Like, I don't think she's invited to parties. I just don't think it happens.
She's a
Like,
director
I like that
now.
she got.
Is that right?
Is she?
Yes, yeah, she
was hamming it up. She was making
That's
the most.
that's
of it.
Ingrid
Part.
Venegar. She does Venegar. She does like weird indie movies on some like Punk Films Presents imprint, like Porcupine Lake and stuff that's playing like TIFF and things like that.
Well,
On Shudder?
she definitely
Like-
wants to command a room. And
Yeah.
I think most of those kids in that room just wanted to like go play 7 Minutes in Heaven. She's like, no, we're gonna open up the occult.
Yeah.
You know,
like-
it did remind me of what's the new one? Talk to Me.
Talk to
right?
Me,
You've
yeah.
seen this one, where you get the teenagers who are making ill-advised, forays into the supernatural at parties. I felt I was getting a vibe from that. I felt like they were going surface level into so many different areas. So The Thing, certainly, I believe The Thing, when you think about the dad's head collapsing in the mom's face, going all nasty. And then like and that's a little claymation-y,
Yeah.
but then you've also just got straight up, those little monsters were much better than Gremlins, honestly. Like more scary for sure.
Yeah.
Like you had all the little creatures, and then you had the kind of, I was getting Hellraiser vibes from like the backyard, like erupting into that different environment. It
Mhm.
looked like hell was about to like come out on Earth. Like they just did like, it felt like a half dozen different movies were all right there crammed together, being experimented with in that one.
Was it surprising to you how much more of the film was like using forced perspective than was claymation?
Yeah, I totally remembered those little gremlin guys had to be claymation,
Oh.
and they were going to look super silly. But they didn't. They looked great. I thought they looked great.
So when asked to describe what you recalled the plot of the film being, you responded.
And this is where you self-grade yourself.
Self-grade?
Well, see how close you are. We'll give you a pass-fail.
Oh, okay. I got to grade myself. All right.
You don't have to grade
Okay,
yourself.
yeah, and I'm hoping that I've got the right title and film that I'm talking about here, but like I felt like this had a lot of it was never one of my favorite movies, right? It wasn't like a Goonies where you're just like, ah shit, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
watch this a million times.
Where you have it memorized. Yeah.
But it had elements of a lot of movies that I did love. So it's like kids, Home Alone, dicking around. You know, there's like some elements of like Critters or The Last Starfighter, because like it's just kids and then crazy stuff happens. Something happens, like I think a tree falls over. There's a hole in the ground. I don't know where all the parents are. They're gone. And then just crazy shit starts coming out of this hole. And it's like a gateway to hell. I don't know why the kids can't run up the street. I don't remember this.
Uh-huh.
But they're stuck with all this crazy shit. And like they're having to deal with it on their own. And it was super scary to me at the time.
I mean, that's really good.
I nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still don't know why they can't run up the street.
Oh yeah.
Let's- I mean, is it something to do with just?
It's because he's grounded. He can't leave. He's grounded, right? Is that it?
Now he tries that his parents, there's demons outside,
Uh-huh.
but then they immediately go back outside to the backyard where the actual danger is.
Yeah.
So,
There's also that obligation, and again, this feels like it was, you know, kind of the most important thing in the 80s, of a babysitter to kind of like run shit. And Alex, is that the sister?
Alexandra, yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
her kind of taking this on as
oh, by the way, Al. They call
Al.
her Al. They give her
Al,
the
yeah,
male
yeah,
names,
yeah.
just like Maxine and Max.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like,
So
just saying,
Al takes
just
this
saying.
on.
She
as
doesn't
like a-
want the masculine name though. She's very like she very clearly, you know, says it's Alexandra. So I think
Yeah.
there is an element of like I don't even want to get into the like
We'll get into it later.
womanhood
We have to-
thing.
we have to get into
I
it
know
later.
it's
We have to get into it.
but like she is like trying to like embrace being a woman, I guess.
It's a big deal. This is a big weekend for her to show her parents that she can
Yeah.
run the house. And when this shit starts happening, I think that there's still part of her that like, we can fix this. I can kind of preserve my reputation, and I want to have parties in the future, right? She wants this
I
guy
think that
back there.
I think the dynamic works really well. This is one area of the film that I think makes a lot of sense. Like she's balancing being independent, being able to throw a party at home, be cool with her friends, with also this obligation to her brother and to not screw up the house for her family. So when they show her at the party, she's cleaning the whole time, right?
Oh,
But
she
and
does
then
a great job of showing what it's actually like to host a party.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's the
and when
worst.
he's trying to
Never
call,
again.
when he tries to call his parents, she shuts that down, takes the phone number away from him, so he doesn't know who to call, because yeah, she's gonna keep this together. And I felt like the pacing on that, it worked really well. It was like, I get this dynamic, I get why this is slowing things down, and everybody's making the decision that they think is right for themselves, and it all made sense to me. You know, until it all gets so far out of hand that there's really nothing she can do.
Yeah. Now, you started off worrying that there may have been some concern that you had completely misremembered which film this was.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, you remember the right film, but were there any things that you had jumbled into this film from another, or vice versa, that like something that you thought was in something else?
Honestly, no. I mean, the only thing that's sort of similar to that is just this movie is so right on the money for like what. Well, I'd never been to anyone's house that was that big, with that many stairs, but like all the little elements of that house, the bug zapper, like just the way the suburban yard looked, like
A bug
had 'em
zapper
mixed up
right
in my
outside
head.
your kid's window. Like just there couldn't
Well,
be
you know,
any
it's
other
just-
place to put that.
but like, but all of those elements, all the stuff that was in the house, even the way those stairs were, which is super kind of scary because the stairs aren't solid, right? They're like that.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I had those a little mixed up with places I'd really been. And in fact, I mean, those things did exist in places where I had really been. So for me, it was just kind of that childlike blurring of, was that a dream? Was that a place I really went? Was it a nightmare? Was it a movie? Was it my aunt's house? Like,
I
so
also
it was all
think
kind of
like
together.
one of the reasons I think that probably is the case with a lot of people who know about this movie is that there's so much kyping from other movies. There's so
Yeah.
much borrowing here. And I don't, like the Duffer Brothers probably stole a lot from this, but like they are
They
pulling
could have
from
just been
so
stealing from
many
the original sources.
They're
You know?
exactly. They're pulling
Just steal
from
from Poltergeist and Gremlins
Yeah.
and Goonies and yeah.
all those 80s movies are kind of like just thrown into a blender here.
Yeah.
And the thing that I actually misremembered was, and we talked about it in the pre-interview, was I thought it was one of the bigger orcs falling into 100 orcs. It was actually the zombie,
Workman. Yeah.
the workman, yeah. Which is, again, one of those things where it's like, why do we have a zombie here in this?
Yeah.
We have zombies, we have ghosts,
Mm-hmm.
we have demons and orcs or whatever. We have
Minions,
a giant one. We have a hellmouth.
Mm-hmm.
We have an eye and a hand.
So typically you're gonna go either demonic and it's gonna be demons, and they're gonna try to do body mutilation to you. The eye would make sense. They're all trying to summon a bigger version of a demon. That would have been one track.
Right.
There's the psychological stuff where you're seeing shit, and like then you're seeing monsters, and you're seeing your parents and like and that's the psychological stuff where you're falling apart. Then there's just the critters / gremlins. It's a bunch of little monsters that are coming, right? And they
like
just did
like
they're
an
just,
annoyance.
it's a strictly sort of barricade the walls, all of that. Instead, they did all of those, and the little gremlins combine, and now they're a psychological threat. And then that you just lost like the eyeball. When the kid looks down and he sees an eyeball in the palm of his hand, that's like an iconic image. That is amazing. It was really well done, like in terms of however they did that, but it made no goddamn sense.
No, the only reference to it is on the blood painting on the wall. But like it's not set up aside from like the like hand with the eye in it on the wall that's in blood on up the stairs. Aside from that, there's no reference to that otherwise.
I was trying to make sense of it. I was like, maybe it's offering him like something so that he'll have powers, or it's like trying to make a deal with him. but like they just didn't explore that. You know, by the way, the only other time I've seen an eye in a hand is, of course, Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, right? And it didn't make any damn sense in that
He's
movie
probably
either.
stealing from
So,
this too.
you know,
Well, yeah, and Josh and I just saw an eye in a ring in
Yep.
Beastmaster,
Yep.
which is 5 years before the gate.
Yeah.
And there's an eye that
Spoiler
looks
alert, because I think
around.
that one might come out after this one.
There's
There's a
an-
reason though.
There's an eye
Oh,
in
yeah.
a ring that can look around and
Yeah.
see
oh yeah.
what's going on.
They
And I
stabbed
think
the eye in the ring there too.
and I stabbed the fucking eye in the ring there. Yeah. So
You
like
know,
there-
fun fact about Beastmaster, which is funny that that's one of yours. That's a based on a science fiction novel by Andre Norton, and the protagonist is Navajo, and that's a
Uh-huh.
huge native science fiction IP. It's like super dialed in. It's all about a native guy who's a beastmaster who's going to an alien planet where there are indigenous people living there from the ground up.
Yeah.
It's just total indigenous sort of thing. And then
And then they
Arnold
get Brian
came
Singer's
around.
cousin. Yeah.
No. What happened was when they
I
were
know, I
making the
know.
movie,
Uh-huh.
what is it? Arnold Schwarzenegger with the sword,
Conan
the
the
Barbarian. Conan came out.
Now,
And they
to
were
be
like,
fair,
"Oh,
they were
shit."
in production at the same time.
Okay,
I only know this
but
because
whatever happened, they
Yeah.
were pivoting, is what I understand.
Yes, for
So
sure.
they pivoted away from that. They got a great big sweaty shirtless
Mark
white
Singer,
guy.
yeah.
yeah, I
do
mean,
it.
with due respect though, I mean he is a native asshole through most of that movie. The guy, the Beastmaster.
Oh man, I haven't.
You
I have a soft spot for that movie, but I wish
well,
that
we
might
have
been
a
done differently.
When our
podcast
episode drops,
that you might want to listen to.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
so
check in.
speaking of Beastmaster, though, you had referenced, you were talking about movies that were too scary, and you'd referenced, you thought it was maybe Phantasmagoria, but it's Phantasm, which is directed by Don Coscarelli, who directed the Beastmaster. And so that was the one with the silver ball that flew around. That was Phantasm.
Yeah, that was pretty spooky.
Now, was this still super scary to you?
I mean, so I was watching it and I was surprised that I had been allowed to watch it
Sure.
by myself.
Yeah.
Especially the parents had the dead dog.
That's such a
The
great
eye was
sequence,
just
though.
too scary.
That sequence of them like leaving to safety, going out in the driveway, parents are coming back. Like I thought that was a really well done
This movie's
sequence.
filled with good sequences.
Yeah,
It's
I
filled
was
with good
like-
sequences, and it's just getting them all to work together.
And for kids to kind of feel like Stephen Dorff is their proxy, right? And you know, you're Glenn in this movie. Like maybe you have a friend Terry, but Glenn is you. He's a great advocate. And for him to kind of finally get what he wants and like call his parents and they're here now, and for his fucking dad's head to melt and then fall
Kid's worst
off.
nightmare.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man.
Oh,
Like,
but by the way, can we just stop and say, like, all of these actors were pretty damn good.
Uh-huh.
Stephen Dorff was incredible. Like, these are a bunch of kids, and I don't know. Like, we watch Troll 2 every now and then, or we'll watch some of these movies that are really funny, and like, oh my god, and you're like, yeah, it's so binary. Either everybody's acting really well and you're just able to pick apart the story for other reasons,
Sure.
logic, or else it's just a non-starter. And man, the acting was really great. I thought these kids did a really great job.
I think Dorff, like Sean Astin, a couple years before this, like those movies don't work. Goonies doesn't work unless Astin is fully committing to this adventure. Like he does not get.
I mean, Dorff is only
enough.
12 here. He's 12 when they fucking shot
he's
this.
a little kid,
Which is
really
probably
crazy.
Probably the same age as Sean Astin in.
I would guess
Goonies, right?
Astin's maybe a year or two older, but not
Well,
much.
Whatever it is, I mean, it's close. And again, the weight of the movie depends on both these kids. And as we've talked
when you're
about,
doing crazy stuff.
As we talked about with an episode we did prior called Firstborn, like you get the kids wrong in a movie, you fuck your movie.
Yeah.
You really blow it. Even if they have kind of minor roles. And again, these kids, not minor roles. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that like Al and Terry didn't have good long careers.
Well, Terry retired from acting at 17. He was the only person who returned for The Gate 2.
For the
Yeah, it was. He was the only one who returned for the Gate 2 trespassers. It
That's
looks
the-
like
that's
he
the
has
name of it?
actually. Yes, it looks like he has actually become a Satanist since.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
He lives in Australia. He changed his name to Baff, short for Baphomet. And he composes
Well-
confrontational experimental music, which occasionally resulted in the involvement of the Humane Society and the police.
Oh boy.
This movie got into this kid, huh?
He was forcing dogs to dance.
I would guess
Yeah.
that he was actually
Oh.
probably bullied at school because of his performance in this.
I don't
Not
know,
that
man.
not that he did badly,
Yeah.
but I think there's a fair amount that, like, I mean, we grew up in the 80s and 90s, right? Like, if you had gone to school
Yeah.
with this kid and he was like rocking out like he was in his bedroom by himself on his bed, like, you probably, if you were a bully,
I don't know. I
type,
mean,
you probably would have made fun of him.
Maybe, but the kid was in a
Yeah,
movie.
maybe.
Kid gets his kid
that's hot
becomes
stuff.
kid becomes a zombie. Kid gets a fucking Barbie doll leg in the eye. I mean, that buys you.
Are
a lot of
you
street cred.
are you positing that he's getting a lot of
I'm just sa-
ass because of this?
No, I would say he gets a lot of clout. I would think that
Okay.
coming back to
I mean, it would be
school
pretty cool.
after being in a horror movie, I think he would probably be the last kid that I would expect to get bullied.
I would guess he got bullied, but
Well, I guess we could get him on the
Well-
show if we, if we
I
can.
don't know, guys.
If
Be
we can
careful.
make we
Yeah.
can make his deal. I wonder what he learned. From
he
this
might
movie.
turn our podcast into a Satanist podcast, Sean.
You
Hey.
guys might end up. He'll send you a couple records to review before you
Yeah.
get going. This is every mom's worst nightmare from the '80s.
Yeah. Now you kind of mentioned being forcibly bused to church,
Yeah,
which
forcibly
fascinated
bused to
Sean and I. You stated a fear of movies with.
Yeah.
You stated you had a fear of movies with devils, demons, etc. Do you think
Yeah,
foisting?
I was getting enough of that every Sunday.
Do you think the foisting of organized religion on you as a child played a role in your kind of dual affinity for and fear derived from the gate?
Yeah, of course. I think that. I mean, I don't know. I guess you can read too much into your own childhood because it
Sure.
feels like very general when you're in it, and then you get older and you realize, it was very specific in some
Mhm.
ways. But I would say I would be very surprised anybody who grew up in the Bible Belt or any place near where I did, if that kind of fear didn't factor into. I mean, every single weekend I had people telling me all about hell,
Yeah.
like in graphic detail,
Mhm.
and being afraid of going to hell is a pretty major factor. And first you have to believe in hell, which
Sure,
that
yeah.
they never did quite get me on that one.
Uh-huh.
But like, if you believe in hell, dude, like they're hammering this in every
Yeah.
Sunday, and it's not a joke; it's real. So like, if you're gonna watch a movie about it, it takes on a whole new context, right? If they're talking about hell, they're talking about something real.
Yeah.
And so, for me, I was agnostic about hell, and therefore I just kind of like I didn't want to stir up any trouble. I mean, I was like, let's let sleeping demons lie. That was kind of my feeling about that whole thing, and which is why I did steer clear of any type of horror or anything like that involved like the devil. These are like weird, like goofy demons. So
Yeah.
to some extent, it didn't really trigger that whole thing for me.
Okay.
But like anything like The Exorcist or whatever, no thanks. I'll hold off. Hellraiser,
Yeah.
never saw that till recently, and I hate to say I love it. I mean, it's an amazing film.
It's
Hellraiser 1 and Hellraiser
Yeah.
2 freaking. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I was kind of sad that I waited this long to watch those two. But
So
I
for
need
the
to be
next-
safe,
Yeah. For the next clip, we asked you what it was about the gate that appealed to young Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be the kids, right? I remember I liked that the kids were in charge. I like that the big thing for me with all horror movies is that I like it when they behave logically, right? Like, oh shit, like there's this hole in the ground. Like, what do we do? And like they kind of, as if I recall, nobody does anything like incredibly just stupid. Like they kind of are dealing with it. Even like, all the good movies, people basically are making the right decisions. It's just things are going wrong for them again and again. And that's the kind of movie you respect, except for, of course, the people that get killed who you want to get killed. They're stupid people. So yeah, that's how I experience horror movies. Is I like a little attrition. I like to see a few people peel off and get killed, but ultimately, you want your hero to just be like making good decisions in a bad situation.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I liked about it. Yeah.
Okay, how many times can I say like in one sentence? You guys, I need to have electrodes put on me so that you can
I
buzz me.
edit myself. I edit myself a lot on multiple podcasts, and oh god, the amount of times I say or like or is it's brutal.
Please edit out all of my likes, and you will have 50% of your podcast remaining
It's gonna be an 8-minute episode.
for your
watching the centering of the narrative around the kids, was it as much a draw for you now as it seemed like it was for you when you were 10?
Oh yeah, I mean that's the whole point of the movie, I think, and they do behave pretty logically. When they find the hole, they fill it in, right? No, the other guys fill it in. Then like, I don't know, all the things that the kids are doing make sense when they think it's a hole. All the things they do make sense when they think that it's a possibly a portal to a demonic realm. I like when they just chuck a Bible down there. That can't hurt, right? Hey, I think there's demons down there. Chuck a Bible in,
I
Good
will
thinking.
posit,
And then-
though, that Terry got very, very lackadaisical about getting close to the edge of the hellmouth
Yeah.
of the gate. Like he is like,
Yeah.
oh, it's cool, I'm fine, and then falls in. Like, I don't know. I guess I'd be afraid of this thing. If all of this shit's coming out of it already, I maybe wouldn't be like walking up to the very edge and being all cocky about it.
People fall into the Grand Canyon every day. All right, someone's falling
Yeah,
in
but
right
they're
now.
idiots,
So,
and like when you're
it
at the
is what
Grand
it is.
Canyon, you see why they would fall in.
Yeah, well, Terry is not
think they
trying to
didn't
take
notice?
a selfie of himself with the hellmouth, which
And an iPad selfie
know,
too. It's an iPad selfie
mean,
holder.
He could have been showing up for Al. Kids do wild things when they're trying to impress older girls. So maybe that was it. But
so
in
yeah.
any case, I felt like mostly they were making good decisions, and I was pretty proud of them as kids. They were keeping it under control. They never thought about
I think that
talking
they
to a
were
neighbor.
I think that they were a victim of the script a little bit. There was a few too many times where, it was like, just read whatever from the Bible. Or one of my favorites was when they're walking down into the basement. And Al has probably the most prudent question this film asks, where she says to Terry, "How do you know this stuff?" And his response was, "Trust me, I know what I'm talking about." Like, how is that the basis for, like,
That's a little lazy.
that's a little lazy, man. Especially
Lazy
because,
screenwriting there.
yeah, even with like the records that we're about to hear kind of played backwards, like it doesn't feel like a definitive play-by-play on how to close the gate. But trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Felt a lot like the logic you would hear in a Apple Jacks commercial, where the kids would basically respond to, well, if they don't taste like apples, why do you like them?
I will say that
they would end those commercials by saying, "We just do all right. We just do all right," was like the thesis.
Yeah. I will say that the psalm they read, or the Bible verse they read from, was like Psalm 59, which was actually apt. They didn't establish how they would have known that, but
Yeah.
They probably had a Bible expert on set.
Well, they just didn't establish it within the confines of the actual.
Yeah, then there was a lot of that, right? And
Yeah.
I just didn't understand the rules, right? And we've talked about like world building and what we're letting the audience know, what we're kind of keeping to ourselves. But like having, even like say Stranger Things, right? Like let's pivot to that. Like we have a pretty good idea that those kids kind of know what to do and it feels like the audience is along with them when they're trying to figure out the upside down, trying to figure out the Demogorgon, etc. Like there's this goal that they're working toward. I think that was a big disconnect with maybe why this movie didn't work, but
Yeah.
probably other reasons. But
My
yeah, I
my
never
feeling,
felt like I knew what was happening.
the more we talk about this and the more I think about it, the more I realize I think this is what is going on with The Gate. This movie functions perfectly as like a B movie, as like what it is. The problem is that they swung kind of outside their. I'm terrible at sports metaphors.
They
Can you swing outside
punched
your
outside their
weight
weight.
class?
Yeah, they
They
punched.
were swinging the baseball. Yeah, there were in a couple of areas they really did really well. The acting was really good for something like this. The special effects were really good for something like this, and therefore now we're suddenly trying to make the rest of the movie on the same level as those attributes of the movie, and then we're talking about where it's falling down, right? But I think really they just did so well in a few areas of this movie that we were expecting. Like I think they came close to something really, really super special. Um, because yeah, I mean, like there's some elements of this that are Troll 2, and there are some elements of this that are Goonies. And it's like together, yeah.
Yeah, and like with the Goonies, right? Like we're in really safe hands with Richard Donner, and the script kind of like, at least if there's plot holes, like, there's so much action and it's so dense that we can kind of get through it. And the set pieces are so great. But for Terry to kind of be this expert, maybe he has gained a little bit from, his grief, his recent grief, but
You know what Terry needed? He needed a dead older brother. Now he needed a dead older brother that was super into metal and everything.
who
And
could,
Terry like kind of worships, like a John Cusack from Stand By Me, like that bedroom, except the death metal version of that bedroom. So I'm
And
just
not an
making notes to
absentee
myself for the
father.
remake.
yeah, okay,
So I
sure.
need one of those too, obviously.
Or like, let's spend a little bit more time on why this band is connected with what's happening. I mean, no band has ever put as much work into the liner notes of a fucking record.
And it got him killed.
Yeah,
that's
maybe the
that's all
band's
they got.
all
I'm trying to
fucking
warn
dead,
everyone.
and they're in the Gate.
With a much fresher viewing under your belt, do you think there were any other things about the film that might have drawn your younger self to The Gate that hadn't occurred to
Oh,
you?
the rocket. I was super into rockets.
Okay.
Yeah, I was getting those rockets and putting them together and shooting them off in the backyard. And like, I mean, ultimately, they're always so underwhelming. And like, you're like, God, what a waste of time. But
And money.
there's so much fun right up until the moment whenever you shoot them off. So I was super into the rockets too. I think that also,
You never know when
yeah,
you're going
that
to need
got
one.
me.
This movie was like the proving ground for always having a spare rocket
I feel like, yeah,
that also has a love connotation.
like when his sister comes back, it feels like she's just going to abandon him for her friends and go to the mall, and then she comes home and she gives him the rocket.
Right.
Like she spent her money buying him a present, and like I thought, oh my God, that's really sweet. Like that got me in the feels a little bit, but they just needed to align that up a little bit better, so that you understand that the rocket represents hope and love and all that. I feel like that really could have worked, but it just kind of, yeah.
So throwing to the next clip, you added the following.
In the 80s, we were home alone a lot. Like I had a big backyard. Like I spent a lot of time in my backyard or up the street at the creek with my dog. Like,
Who knows where you're going to see a hole in the ground?
Yeah,
I mean,
were you
shit,
worried that a
this
hell
felt
gate was
pretty
going to open
plausible.
up in your backyard?
I mean, I had dug many holes in my backyard.
Couldn't
My
find it.
backyard was filled with holes. Yeah, so that was like our pastime. Wow, you guys are getting me into it now. I'm realizing maybe why I like this movie. I forgot about it.
When you were digging these holes, and no judgment, I also dug many holes. Was the end goal to find geodes and/or accidentally open a hellmouth?
Let's see. I had my dad worked at a body shop. He fixed cars, and he would sometimes take barter. And so we had these old janky go-karts. We had two of these go-karts and a little 50, little Honda 50. So a lot of them were the earthworks designed to create extremely dangerous jump situations, jumping situations.
Okay.
So partially, we also had a creek that ran behind our house, and we had neighbors on the other side of this creek. And so we would dig some military installations to have places to hide while we threw dirt clods across the creek at various neighbor kids and adults and general structures and things like that. And then third, there was kind of like I was very into GI Joes when I was little and playing with these, so setting up these very complex settings out there where you get the hose and you create rivers, and there's a whole lot of that. So these also involved digging lots of holes.
Okay.
So I mean, it was a wonderland back there of just giant gashes in the earth. It was it was a free for all back there.
Do you ever wish that your dad had coincidentally brought back Sacrifice's the Dark Book for you to possibly learn how to combat dark forces?
So we did have a room in my house where when I was a kid. We call it the Blue Room. It was a little tiny house where the attic had been converted into like a bedroom with brown shag carpeting and stuff like that. And my dad had a little room where he kept all of these artifacts, because he's a sort of amateur anthropologist. So we did have a spooky room like that at my house where there's old swords and axe heads and old pottery and Roman artifacts and Aztec stuff, Mayan stuff from all my dad's travels. And so, I was no stranger to kind of like my dad bringing back spooky things.
Okay.
I mean, geodes were a big. I mean,
I remember thinking geodes were really fucking cool as a kid.
The age that these kids are when they encounter a geode, I absolutely buy that they would be fascinated by that for
peak geode.
I mean, it kind of feels like a geode wrote this movie. Like it's super,
what'd you call me?
It's super pro geode. Like
the geode industrial complex.
They're called
pushing their geode agenda on us right down our throats again.
I think they're called some kind of eggs out in Oregon, right, Daniel? They're called like
Thunderbird eggs or something like that, or
Thunderbird eggs. Yeah.
We have I don't have geodes around here, but we have things called is it cordite, like CHOR, or is that just dynamite? I forget what they're called. They're super hard little rocks, and you break them open. There's almost always a little fossilized crab inside. And they're amazing.
You also have dynamite at your house too, but that's a whole whole different
somewhere.
So we asked you about your memories of watching this film.
I just remember it would have been, in our house in the 80s, my little brother, who's 2 years younger than me, no air conditioning, both of us just sweaty, in a wood-paneled living room on brown, shag rug, straight up with a television. And by the way, I wanted to say this. I hope that if you guys are watching old movies from the 80s, that you're watching them on a television from the 80s. Don't tell me you're in some screening room or you're on a big fancy flat panel TV trying to watch this shit, because that's not authentic. If it's a movie from 1980, you need a television from 1980.
A little bit of judgment coming off of me.
You know what it is? It sounded quite political. It sounded like a stump speech.
Yeah. Did you manage to experience the gate authentically this time, toiling away on a tube TV?
No. I looked at it on my phone.
After all of that
shit talking.
I'm a parent. And that means I'm a hypocrite. It's not about do what I do. It's do what I say you should do. I didn't dig it out. I don't have my VHS player went down, I tell you. It's gone down. And that's
Did you break off the channel knob and change the channel with roach clips for old time's sake?
No, but that'll always be one of my favorite memories.
I wonder though, with a CRT or something, if some of the effects, without kind of crystal clear display, have a better effect. Just a little bit of a warp to it, not quite 4K.
I swear to God, I thought you were talking about critical race theory for a second. I was like, wait, what? When you said CRT, I was like,
Yeah.
huh?
Uh-oh.
Well, we were getting
I
political there.
absolutely. No, Sean, I absolutely think that. I mean, absolutely. Like, because I mean, look, when they were cutting this movie, when they were
Mhm.
filming it, when they were doing whatever, the color corrections, the brightness, the technology they were thinking about was a VHS tape, you know, on a little square television. So of course, I think it would look most, you know, authentic and best, seeing it the way it was intended to be seen. So yeah, I agree.
There is, speaking of watching this at home, there is a brand new Blu-ray, a steelbook release that is set to come out via Lionsgate on the 14th of May.
Really?
Yes,
Look
There
at
you
us.
go.
You guys
two
should
commentary tracks. I'm going to drop this earlier because of that.
get them
So
to get them a couple bucks from Lionsgate there.
yeah, I'll reach out. I'm sure they'll give us a bunch of money. But yeah, they're going to be a bunch of new featurettes and some two commentary tracks. So yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. Nice.
So maybe that will look okay on your TV. Because
Okay.
then it'll be
All
like
right.
a
I'm feeling a little
cinematic
judgment
experience.
coming back at me now. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I deserve it.
Now, watching this, was there any point in which you were kind of transported back to the wood-paneled, shag-carpeted living room of your youth?
Yeah. You know, I really was like his bedroom, a lot of the house. The thing is, I didn't want to see a house as shitty as mine, right? Like, I think this movie is a little bit
Mm-hmm.
aspirational in that his house is pretty nice. It's like, but it's not like crazy rich or anything, but the house is nice and it's clean and it's like open.
Right.
So it's like the house you would have wanted, you know, if you were a kid in the 80s. So definitely it was taking me back. And just the way the kid, I don't know, what is it about like the way he was dressed, but even the way he moved, like he's like this squat, there's like this squat little 80s kid, like
Mm-hmm.
way of moving around in these movies. Where yeah, it was all just bringing me back for sure.
Now, if it's any consolation, this house was an impossibility.
Mm,
The exteriors were shot like, you know, in northern Toronto metro area, but all of the interiors were at a soundstage a few miles away. So like the interiors did not match at all with
Yeah.
what the layout of the house would have been.
that
So
huge center area doesn't make sense.
it
Yeah.
makes
I was
sense in
getting
a house with a
Beetlejuice
certain
vibes,
entry.
too.
Yeah.
When they were at the top of the stairs, you know,
Mhm.
it's so far down, and I was feeling Beetlejuice vibes right then, like when you know Beetlejuice turns into a banister or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah,
And for
the
the
stairs thing, it feels like, you know, certainly coming from the things that could potentially hurt you in real life, like rickety stairs. Like I had these stairs that went up the side of the house that I was kind of convinced was going to be my undoing. And I had a little throwback to that when poor Dorff, who probably got roughed up a little bit probably on this movie.
Yeah.
He's really physical in this thing.
Well, at the very end, when the house explodes, that was him that was blown.
Oh my God. I really like that effect. They really
Yeah.
they launched his ass. I mean, that was like they put him in a slingshot
Yeah.
straight into the nothing. That was belonged to Neverending Story. Like, pow. Well, what about those arms coming from under the bed? By the way,
Oh yeah, that was
horrifying.
easily the
Horrifying.
scariest thing in the whole fucking movie.
They did a
just
good
like
job with
picking
like
on it.
wetness, like whether it was kind of goopy faces or wet
Uh-huh.
hands.
Yeah.
Actually,
Deformable
speaking about hands too, like a cool effect was like
hands.
the hands coming through the wall. where you
Oh,
could
that's
see
Nightmare on
the-
Elm Street, man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
whenever
they pulled from
they
that.
first did that effect in Nightmare on Elm Street. I wonder which one came out first. I'm gonna make a guess.
One thing, you know, I don't know if we mentioned.
I
it
think
too,
your
but
guess is correct.
when did it come out? Probably like right before this, as far as a book.
Oh, the book. Yeah, the book came out before this. The first adaptation wasn't until like 1990, but I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure the
so
book-
I think it's like a 1985, 86 book. But there's certainly, when Daniel was talking about like kind of the psychological elements, so much of it is about
The
kids
novel's a
seeing
year
things.
before, 86.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe that's another thing too, where you just had these producers who were like, shouting into the room like, "Hey, look,
Zeitgeist.
this is doing well. Let's add Terry as a zombie, or let's add, Dancing with a Dead Dog," because there's a scene in it when he's dancing with someone and it's revealed to be Pennywise, but only at the very last second.
Oh, Stephen King does that a lot. Didn't they do that in the one where everyone's a monster cat, but they look like normal people, and they sing that horrible old country song that I love.
Why can't I think of the fucking name of that?
I mean,
it was the name of
I've
the
seen
song.
that movie in the last like fucking 3
Really?
years. Yeah.
Speaking of wet, those big wet hairless
speaking of
cat
wet,
people.
I mean, this movie really is like
Wet hands.
the trope. Like there are
Nightbreed?
Nightbreed.
No, it's not Nightbreed. I don't think it's.
I'm sorry. I looked up Craig Sheffer, who I swear is in that movie. Let me. Fuck.
Sleepwalking or something.
Sleepwalkers maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think it's Sleepwalkers.
Well, yeah, and who knows what King has pulled from, but yeah, there's certainly, a lot of tropes in this movie. I mean, this is not horror related, but one of my banes in a movie is when you have a character say, "No way, we're not doing a party. There's absolutely no way we're having a party." Cut to
Smash cut.
smash cut to party, and sure enough, the gate has a great one.
Well, that one was at least not we're not having a party, like protesting and then smash cut. It was, "Oh, no, Mom and Dad, we won't have a party," and then smash cut to party. Like, it was more of a, I'm just lying to my parents to their face. And so it's a little less egregious than the like person who doesn't want to have the
really
party getting cowed into having one.
And even saying that, like, whatever gripe I had was quickly abated with seeing Al basically just playing cleanup for fucking 2 hours, which I think is really, really great.
Yeah.
Those kids, by the way, not that affected by a child levitating.
No,
I would be
old
the
hat.
fuck out of there. But at no point were they like, I think we should run as far as we can away from this home.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, can we also have a slow clap for the teenage boy who's driving around the dead dog?
What was with that?
And
Like, why?
underneath the title of "Things You Have Done as a Teenager in an Attempt to Get Laid."
Yeah.
Like,
Drove around with a dead dog.
He's taking it on himself to like dispose of this dead dog. I mean, like, the dog, yeah.
The original dog was too heavy, and so they had to go to a taxidermist.
Also, this dog is 97,
dog.
right? In dog years, like, even if it is brought back to life in the end scene, how much longer does it have?
It's ballsy to kill a dog like that.
Then unkill it.
I mean, look, and so I felt like that was perfunctory. It was like, okay, why not? We're gonna throw every other logical thing out the window. Just bring the dog back. Why not?
We don't want to lose those people who are angry that we killed the dog.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer that there's kind of no stakes. Like aside from the house being destroyed.
What a producer note you've got there. Yeah. There should have been some guy in a suit that said, "Where are the stakes? Yeah. Can't we build these stakes? Get those world-threatening stakes."
The real horror
kids don't care about property damage. That's
true. They don't give a shit that the world's going to turn into a hell on earth.
Yeah.
The realistic horror movie is what's going on at Terry's house. With
God, that kitchen.
Yeah,
he eats Dave's old pizza. That would have killed him anyway.
I mean, how has Child Protection Services not been called by the end of this movie?
I feel like, honestly, Terry's the weak link of this film. No offense to Terry the actor, but like Terry as written. I mean, look, if you want to see a realistically portrayed Terry, Corey Haim in Stand By Me. The kid's a little screwed up.
We just saw him in Firstborn, and he was amazing.
Yeah,
Corey Haim.
It was Haim, right? I got the right one.
Feldman's in
Stand By Me. Sorry, Feldman and Stand By Me with the burnt up ear, right? Like a little bit of a nutty kid, like obviously the product of abuse, and like Terry, they're trying to walk this line, where he's, but he's obviously that's like super scary.
Terry, I think Terry might actually have worked better if he was the third friend. And I had a little bit of a Mandela effect, even though I haven't seen this movie ever prior to this, where I was like convinced it was 3 kids and an older sister.
Mhm.
And I'm probably bringing a lot of that in from the Explorers, but
Mhm.
Terry is like the weird third friend
You
in a
can't be the
trio.
nerd scientist. So like you got all the friends. You got the everyman, who's
Right.
in Explorers. That's going to be um,
Phoenix.
Ethan Hawke, right?
Or-
But then
sure.
you got the nerd, who's very improbably played by River Phoenix. Get the fuck out of here. No, giving him a germ, and no, it doesn't. The kid's too good looking. But anyway, but
He's
you got your
Wolfgang,
scientist,
right?
and Wolfgang, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have your misfit, right? And you have your misfit, and the misfit can be the one that would invoke
Yeah.
the demon stuff, or
You needed
whatever
at
would be the
least
wild card.
you needed at
But-
least 3,
Yeah, because
It's
that
like you
kid,
had-
they had Terry, they had 2 roles mapped onto him, and he was doing too much, and it was conflicting.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that he probably is the weak link. I mean, we should talk a little bit about Al, Josh, and what's
Okay.
kind of going on there. I think she does a really great job, but it doesn't feel like we have that circle kind of ever really finished on where we're kind of going with her and her.
Sure. And I would, the moment where she's eyeing herself up in profile in the mirror,
Let's say, okay,
Felt-
so why?
I understand thematically kind of why they're doing that, because she's sort of at like the precipice of becoming an adult. I can at least understand that, but the gaze with which the camera, which is manned by a fucking grown-ass adult,
Hungarian.
Hungaro-Canadian, Sean. He grew up in Canada.
Excuse me.
Tibor Takac. I had some big problems with that specific shot. Felt very creepy to me.
I just don't get it. I just like, okay, she wants
They're setting up that mirror scene later. I sort of, it's Chekhov's mirror, but it's still.
But she could be putting on like an outfit for the party, right? And like that,
Right.
you could establish your mirror there, but for her to kind of like put the kids to bed and have this kind of like
checking herself out of the mirror.
checking herself out to see, and also because she has this shithead, yuppie guy in the mix whose name I probably intentionally forgot.
Well, just call him Joe Trans Am.
Yeah, I think it's Joe Pontiac, actually.
Billy Firebird.
I'm pretty sure it is a Firebird. Yeah,
it's a Trans Am. It's a Trans Am on the back.
Oh,
I mean,
is it
Firebird is a Trans Am sub model, but it was a Trans Am.
okay. Who Lord knows what he does with dead dogs. She's like after his affections, but then like
Not really. Her friends are the ones trying to put her up to that guy.
Yeah.
I don't think she ever showed really any affection for him at all. And she felt, that was weird. They were projecting some sexual stuff onto her, but like, I don't really feel like that never was part of the movie.
It
Or
felt
maybe
like
I
there
was
was
just stuck.
It felt like there was a scene that was cut where like some of this kind of like makes sense, because as it is now, it doesn't. Like we lose that, the sort of girl becoming a woman subplot.
Right. Now, I know the script took change or had big changes after this, but initially this was like Michael Nankin, the writer, he was writing this in the midst of a divorce, and he was just like, I'm going to take the worst part, the quote, filling it with the quote, the nastiest thoughts from his childhood, end quote. And the kids were much more deserving of their fate, and it also had demons dragging neighbors from their homes and killing them in the streets. But they thought that was like too extreme. So I don't know how much of we are still like, obviously like they were cutting things back from that point, but who knows what they shot and then cut back past that to like ensure a PG-13 rating and like still make it play to, clearly the target audience is, like preteens still, like I don't think this is playing as much to high schoolers as it is to like junior high kids.
It's aspirational. And that actually reminds me of that scene you were talking about where Terry says, just trust me. that felt like a safety scene, like where you're like, we may have to cut all this other shit that explains this, so let's just
Sure.
shoot this scene where he just says, just trust me, because everyone's going to be wondering. She needs to say it out loud. We have to acknowledge it, but we may not have time, or it might make the movie, less good if we
it's
include
storytelling
those scenes.
CYA. Yeah.
Yeah, just who knows, but that's
have that
interesting
be-
that the original version of this was even more intense, and that could
much more
yeah.
intense.
So tonally, it's a tonally uneven movie. It's not tonally. It's not like hitting one tone and sticking to it.
Right.
Like with the with Goonies, like they're threatening to shoot children.
Yes.
Like they're shooting guns at children. I mean, imagine if one of those kids gets shot, just a dead kid in a kid, right? Yeah, from the tone, from the very beginning, when Chunk smashes his milkshake against the glass, that none of these kids are going to get shot, right? And like, they didn't pull that off. With
Chunk,
this,
who
where
almost lost his hand in a blender.
Yeah, they put his fucking hand in a blender. Oh my god, madness!
The 80s.
I hope they don't try to remake Goonies. Because God help them, they will.
They
I don't
will.
know, probably. Maybe not. But Spielberg doesn't care. So,
They
I mean,
will with the kids now as the dads.
Probably. Oh yeah.
Oh really?
I did.
What
Maybe
about
they
this?
might have aged out though. Honestly, like they might be too old.
I hope so.
Brolin. What do we got? We got Brolin. We
Brolin,
got
Aston,
Sean
Ki-Hai
Astin.
Kwan. The only one who's probably
Ki-Hai's
not
Dude.
make an appearance is probably Jeff, the guy who played Chunk, Jeff Cohen,
Yeah, because he's a lawyer.
He's a director now, isn't he?
lawyer.
Or a lawyer, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting.
All right. So we asked you what your expectations were for your return to the gate.
Oh, yeah. I'm kind of feeling like that Harryhausen stuff isn't going to hold up.
Okay.
Mm.
But I'm also trying to remember if there's like a babysitter who gets killed or how it works. So anyway, yeah, I'm just curious. I'm kind of, to be like dipping in my childhood a little bit to see like, he actually liked this. What an idiot,
Would you say you're optimistic?
Yeah.
It's going to
I'm sure
retain
it'll be-
some charm and
Yeah, I think
place
so.
for you?
At the very least, it's going to remind me of where I was at whenever I watched it, hopefully.
How did you ultimately feel about the stop motion animation and practical effects?
Well, as I said before, I thought it was great. So
Oh, okay.
I was
Cool.
pleasantly surprised there. I thought they killed it. I mean, and for you to say that the guy did the thing come on.
And
Yes,
went on
that
to
guy,
do Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he was balling out, so that was great.
Were you surprised that no one actually perished ultimately?
Yeah, when listening to that clip, I was like, wait a minute, nobody actually, except for the dog.
No, the
Gets
dog comes back.
killed.
The dog's back. At
Oh
the
yeah,
end
I
too.
guess. Well,
Yeah.
okay, the dog got killed and resurrected. But,
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, it's
but they killed
Jesus'
the dog.
Yeah.
and it's pet
I mean-
cemeteried.
He's a dead dog longer than he's an alive dog screen time wise.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I am surprised by that. I totally thought people got killed, but it really did swing more for the Goonies vibe in terms of nobody actually gets killed.
Now, were there any moments that had you questioning what your younger self had seen in the movie?
Yeah, when the arms came out under the bed, when the dad's face melted, I didn't remember any of that. Like I remember that I remember the big monster at the end, like the big thing coming up, and I remember that looking a little silly. But those other scares were way scarier than I thought.
Do you think you memory hold them for your protection?
Yeah, I don't know, right? Because I'm like, whoa, Daniel, like you were a tough little cookie back then.
Even that,
maybe I
great
had my
little-
eyes closed. You
a
know,
great
that's
little
possible.
moment was the family photo.
Yeah, it's all
Where
blurry.
they're all-
There's guys
they're all
holding the
Uh,
They're all fucking dead.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, the boy's alive. It's his parents are dead, I think, and they're all holding each other, right?
Oh, it was brutal.
Anyway, whatever it was, I don't know. You might be right. It was creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the movie had some elements that I thought were a lot scarier than I remembered.
So you suggested you might ruin your children's youth by making them watch The Gate with you. Did this happen?
Yeah, I did not. I didn't get a chance to make my children watch
Okay,
this.
okay.
So, no, unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Maybe for the
I'm
best.
not. I'm not ruling it out. I mean,
Uh,
and if they are gonna watch it, they need to watch it young. But I had a whole period all during COVID where I sat and watched movie after movie with my older kids, who at the time were like 10 and 8 or something. And as a result, I'm like, I think I might be raising movie critics because we basically have this podcast every
okay.
time we
Yeah, sure.
watch
Mm.
movies together.
Uh,
And there's a lot of pausing of the movie and talking about what's working or what's
uh,
not. And
sure.
so we're insufferable, is what I'm trying
Are
to
you
say.
pausing for
We're
like
awful.
historical context too? Like, okay,
Oh,
so this is
absolutely,
what
because
this.
I gotta explain the 80s.
Mhm.
The kid drops there's a hard R. There's the F word comes
Oh, the
out
Oh
F
yeah,
word, yeah.
over
that
his
was such a
shoulder.
weird.
He
I
just
don't even.
he
Almost
calls
all
him
of the
that and he
worst
runs.
stuff is coming from Lori. Also, that she is the worst. But I mean, when she
mean,
effing
this-
out, like what the fuck does that?
Is
Or effing off
Is Lori the one with the crimped hair? Is
with
she the
that
friend?
straight up with the bizarre
Oh,
like
Yeah.
straight up hair in the
Yeah,
front.
some
Effing
hairspray
off
stuff.
was something I wrote down.
Oh, I was like, I don't even know what that means, and I'm a fucking
It's
adult.
another example of the tone being really uneven. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
because nobody is saying that in like, again, I guess the Goonies
Well,
is our gold
they could be
standard.
saying it up in Toronto or wherever the hell they filmed it.
sure.
Like, that
Yeah,
could be
maybe
a-
that's
Hungaro,
regional.
Toronto.
Yeah,
It very well could be. It very well could be a little Canadian, middle school
Yeah,
type of
flair.
slang.
we're gonna have to go back
so
and
I
watch
do
the
often
original
pause.
Degrassi's. Yeah.
I'll often
Yeah.
pause and explain culturally the context of stuff because, like, it's certainly all the stuff about all the homophobia from 80s movies.
It's
Everybody's just
rampant.
surprised now when kids read it or watch it now. They're just like, "So wait, that's an insult? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening? Why is that person reacting that way?"
Yeah.
And my kids don't get it at all, so I have to just say, "Yeah, that's a really mean thing to say back then." Like, um, aside from that, and then also they've just been raised on much better special effects, so
Sure. Yeah.
they are a little underwhelmed. Even now at like 11, it's like too late. They already are seeing the cracks and the faults.
Yeah. Well, this one isn't that bad effects wise. Like that isn't a like big sticking point for this at least.
No.
Now, very early on in the pre-interview, you opined that The Gate was a pretty damn stupid title. Having just rewatched this, do you have any ideas as to what it should have been called?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, it all depends on what they're going for, right? Because there's like a
Sure.
million cheesy titles, like that they could have gone for. But no, I'm not an improv guy. I can't on the
Okay.
spot
Okay.
think of any great type. But Sean, I wonder if
mean,
you've got any ideas.
I think Hellmouth would be great.
Yeah.
Something to
Yeah.
do with the kids. I mean,
You can't put hell in it though, or else the parents aren't gonna let their kids watch it at that time.
I think
Well,
honestly, it probably would have done better if it had hell in the title.
Yeah,
Well, I
actually,
mean, just
you're
from
right. Then the kids would find
especially
a way.
on video, like on home video, I think it would have done.
kids
way
watched
better.
Hellraiser. You know what you could
Yeah.
have done? A really big, bold move would have been to call this Love and Light, which is what I believe he shouts before firing his rocket.
Or Love and
Oh,
Rockets,
God,
and just have the
that
entire
could have
soundtrack
worked.
be Love and Rockets.
Love and Rockets.
Love and Rockets. But
Oh
yeah,
my
I think
gosh.
the Gate's okay. I don't think we ever actually saw the Gate. It felt like when
I
Terry
mean,
went down, he got close, but like they kind of came out of like, the stumps and whatnot. We never really
I
saw.
think even just Gateway,
Yeah.
might have been. I mean, there's a million titles like The Breach or like that like indicate there's been a tear between realities. What
I
do they
mean,
even call it? And
The Gate could have been
and
a Cold
Stranger
War movie
Things.
as well,
Yeah. About the Brandenburg Gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys
All
are
right,
deep in
so-
your history on this one.
Sorry. We'll not cut that. Okay, so moving on to picking up the scraps. Is there anything that you guys feel like we've missed so far that you want to talk about?
My only thing, and this is kind of well-worn territory for me. This score is pretty shit. It's kind of like a synth. It's all synth,
Uh,
and not only is it all synth, it's mostly stingers. So in terms of like composing some type of melody for the gate or for the score, we
Yeah.
don't get that. We just get a guy kind of on a Casio hitting spikes. And a score can really, really save a movie that's in a little bit of distress. It can win
Yeah.
me over, and this score is fucking trash.
It's a
I
little,
didn't.
it's bland. I didn't
I
even
just
think
thought it
about the
was
fact that
bland.
there was a
Yeah.
It
score.
is. It's yeah,
Yeah.
it can be used in almost every other movie from this time.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I want to say that this movie has a meme in it that's become a meme, I think. And now we're seeing so much 80s based stuff, with Stranger Things, just the last however long that's been going on, 5 or 10 years, whatever. Including the rise of synthwave, which I'm a big fan of. I love
Oh,
all
I
the
love
new
synthwave.
synth music. I love all the new synth remakes
Yep.
of old songs and everything. I love it. But one thing that I always hated in movies from the 80s, and now hate with a passion in movies that are now based on the 80s, are the actually the omni never present useless 80s dad, which in this case it's both parents,
Yeah.
but you see it again and again. There's this dad who's like at the kitchen table, the kids have all just seen demons or something, and everyone's, eating, and the dad's clueless, right? Has no idea what's happening, is reading the paper, I've got to go to work, see you later. And like just that total absentee, like dad theme, I'm just like, come on, like I had enough of it. And I see it too much now. And of course it's in this movie double. You've got two dads who one never even makes it onto the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, yeah. So that's my beef. I got beef with the useless 80s dad.
Well, that
Um,
segues nice into our gripes. Josh, you have a gripe that got under your skin on this?
I mean, honestly, it's only 85 minutes and it still kind of dragged for me. I actually fell asleep both times that I watched it and had to rewind it.
Josh watches these things twice.
Yeah, the first time I watch it, like without not taking notes, not doing anything, and then I take notes the second pass. So, but yes, I fell asleep twice watching this, two separate times. And the first time I fell asleep like 4 times. It took me like 3.5 hours to watch the movie.
Yeah, I think like that kind of hits on what we've been talking about. And, with limited degrees of activity, all of us are writers here. This script needed some fucking help. And somebody who knew how to write a
It needed to
screenplay to
choose a
go through,
lane.
it would have really
yeah.
helped
Yeah.
to kind of
What it needed was they needed to bring in a new. The original writer did so many great things, but obviously couldn't kill their babies, and so
Yeah.
they needed to get another person to come in and just pick a lane and streamline all the great
Yes.
stuff into one thing. And then, I mean, this could have really, because I think the acting and the special effects and like everything else was there, the production value, they should have had a better score, but like whatever. I mean,
Mhm.
I think we're right. If you had just that one last rewrite to just condense everything down, it would have been probably could have been a
and
banger.
please, please don't end your movie panning up from your central characters to fucking clouds.
This might have been the
Oh,
first time they ever did that.
I couldn't believe
You
that they
know,
fucking did
could have
that.
been
Are you kidding
87.
me?
I don't know. It ever been done before this.
I feel pretty certain it
We got
was.
nowhere else to go. Like
You're gonna make a bet.
Right
can
before
fake-
that, though, I had a huge problem with the. Okay, obviously they're with Dorff on a soundstage, and there's a matte painting. There's a matte painting that's supposed to be like, or like dusk, or not dusk, dawn. And so like they start to turn the camera left, to start to pan left, and then it cuts to him outside, and it's such a bad match lighting wise that it's like just fucking cut that matte painting. Like, I know you made I know you had a matte painting done, but that does not need to be there at all. It was such a bad match that it was jarring. Anyway, whatever. Dumb
They kind of just wrapped
minor
it up. It kind
complaint.
of just ended.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, we haven't mentioned with Kelly Rowan, who's Lori, the spiked bangs one. She was in, I think, the OC. But Jennifer Irwin who's playing Linda, the other sister, was Kenny Powers' sister-in-law in Eastbound and Down.
Okay.
And she's the
Okay.
regional manager that comes in and hates Amy on Superstore.
Okay.
She's still acting quite a bit.
That's good.
Yeah.
But
No, I thought so much got done right. And there's a reason that this stuck in
Mhm.
my head all these years. And Stephen Dorff killed it as a 12-year-old. It's a shame about Terry. I hope he wasn't negatively affected by this film. But
I think he's
I
living
mean,
his
all in
best
all, I'm
satanic
glad
life
I
in Australia.
I'm glad I rewatched it, and it's fun to pick it apart now, like whatever, 40 years later. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's a cool movie. It's stuck in my head. It's got a place in my heart, and so I'm glad they made it, and I'm glad I had a chance to watch it then and now.
I think you could probably remake The Gate. I think
Mhm.
you could.
Oh, I know. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I got to find out who's got this IP.
You could
Is it?
stay true to the original vision, do a lot of practical
Reach out to
stuff.
Alex Winters. He might still have it.
Yeah, he might have the IP.
I
for it.
doubt it.
very
I'm sure the
approachable on
studio
Twitter.
has it. Okay. I'm sure that the studio has it. No,
But this
and
is a
Alex
weird.
Winter's
This is a weird like
hero of
Canadian.
mine.
This is a mostly Canadian production, and so like the like Alliance Atlantis probably has the rights.
So if it's Canadian, Daniel, you can probably just ask politely and they'll give it to you.
Yeah.
I'll just make the remake, and then whenever they come around and say something, I'll just say,
Change it to Gateway.
yeah,
That's the second.
the gateway. The
So
Hellmouth.
I
Now I
guess
got to deal with.
yeah, the title, making it work.
No, the Hellmouth. I don't want to go deal with what's his
Joss?
face
No,
from Buffy.
fuck that guy.
Whoever that
So-
guy is.
How would we fix this film for a modern audience?
I mean, you drop the weird kind of perverted eye from the camera on Al. You drop some of the homophobia language.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
Some.
assumed that would go away.
Yeah, you gotta do a little bit of that. I don't know, like a lot of things would still work here. You could still have parents kind of going off to the Red Lion to have like a honeymoon weekend or an anniversary weekend and have, the house run by 15-year-olds.
I think you'd have to make the sibling, the older sibling, older. They'd probably have to be 17.
You'd have to do that thing.
What I would do with this.
Well, last thing is you have to do that thing that all modern films have to do, which is like somehow make it so the phone doesn't work. Like in this movie, the fucking phone melts.
Yeah.
Which is really
I like that. It
Uh-huh.
also got the face melt treatment, like the straight up. It looked into the Ark of the Covenant. That phone had seen its last call.
You're not calling the cops when the fucking phone melts.
Phone's on fucking fire.
But you would have to do that thing of like, okay, why can they not just call for help? But
I think all of that stuff, that's all the obvious stuff that you'd have to do, right? And you have to do that for every horror movie now. I think if you were really going to make this movie transcend, bring it up to like what it really could have been, you lean into that, the emotional payoff of the love and rocket, the love and hope. And that is one thing that does work in the original movie, which is that relationship between him and his sister. She wants to move forward to the world, become an adult. He's holding her back to some extent. It's about loyalty to family and about becoming an adult and and doing your own thing, your own social thing. And then him as a kid, like also becoming more independent. Like I feel like that brother-sister relationship, you got to lean into that. You got to make that emotional payoff happen. I don't know. I'd choose such a penetrative metaphorical device as a rocket. If this is a brother-sister sort of situation, I might find a different metaphor to carry that. But when he fucking faces off against the big monster in the end, his sister needs to be there. It's like Billy and his sister fighting the big doohickey, and there's an example of that done right, where that kid, like you're like, wow, okay, he did the right thing here, and you're into it emotionally. I think if you could bring that emotion out, all the rest of this, and then obviously pare it down to just pick a lane in terms of psychological, or is it demons, or is it critters, whichever one the producers want. Then you just run with that, make the emotion pay off. And this thing's gonna hit. It'll be great.
I think, Daniel, that's good. It's something to do with Al and Glenn, like igniting the fuse together. Like it's something where like he can't quite get the the lighter close enough, but she's a little bit bigger. She's taller, so she can extend her arm closer to the fuse. Something like that would be great. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I think
and
there's
then
also
maybe
a
just
larger.
a little time bandits where they kill the parents at the end. You know, maybe
Sure.
the parents show up and then they die. You know,
Yeah.
just as a great ending. You know, just as sort of a denouement.
They weren't necessary anyway, but I do think that there is kind of an issue with how Glenn is written, where he's so just permanently, perpetually scared of things. I think you maybe have him be scared of a thing, but not have him be scared of fucking everything, because
they had one chance. They had a chance to address this. There's a part where he comes in, they're all eating dinner, and the dad, of course, is being the useless dad.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't believe you dug that up. You gotta, and it's fucking dark now, mind you. You're eating dinner in the dark. And he says, you need to go back out there and fill that hole in. And then we cut. And it's like
it's just
an hour later. And he's like, yeah, I filled it in. And I'm like, are you kidding me? If I'm that age and I walk out in my dark backyard with a smoking hole, and I get out the shovel out of the garage and I walk out there and fill that in, that's horrifying. I mean, that's like Kevin McAllister facing off against the
wet
oven
bandits.
demon or whatever.
Yeah.
The wet bandits, like, or whatever, the monster in his basement, right? I mean, that was a great chance to show him being brave, but you know, they missed a few chances, I suppose.
Yeah. There needed to be more glimmers of him, like not just being a kind of feckless coward. Anyway,
I mean, he pees his pants.
A big pisser. A big pissed youth.
Okay, so last thing before we say our goodbyes, saving graces. What was your favorite moment or element of the film? Starting with Daniel, our guest.
Yeah, again, the moment that I felt the most emotion in the film was when his sister came back and she had the rocket in her bag. And I was like, oh, you know. And then honestly, the other moment that I had the most emotion was when Terry got home and I saw the note from his dad on the refrigerator, and I just felt terrible for Terry. But like, I felt like
the other direction.
Yeah, I don't care what kind of emotion. If a movie is making me
just
feel
be
an
affective.
emotion, then I'm stoked about it. That's why I watch.
Yeah,
and so all of the other horror elements are there just to make us feel emotions, ideally. But in any case, like, I feel like that's the real heart of the movie that I wish they had built off more. Yeah. Because that was surprising. I didn't remember what happened. I thought she really would leave him there, and it was going to be a movie about him. His sister has fucked off and is at the mall while he's getting killed. So I was stoked that she was in it, and then she disappears for the third act climax completely. And that's a little bit of a missed opportunity, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel, we tell ghost stories to make sense of things, as they say in the movie. And I think like there's probably a way to bring that element, just like hit home a little bit harder with that, so that the things about this weekend that they've had away from the parents are more in their heads than actually mom and dad coming home to the house destroyed by demons. But yeah, when that first came up, I was like, oh, it's just a throwaway line to kind of cover their bases, the way that we had that, like, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. But the more I thought about it, we tell ghost stories to make sense of things. Like, it seemed to kind of like we missed a chance to like really make that kind of a theme about this movie and about this weekend. But for me,
about this weekend, maybe that's the new time.
Yeah, for me, this movie really comes down to how good the effects are and how amazing the sequence is, where it kind of culminates with the phantom parents coming home. Like, I'm watching that sequence in my 40s going like, holy shit, I'm so glad I waited 30 years to see this shit. That would have fucking wrecked me. I'm like staying up with the fucking nightlight.
To the same point, for me, it's the fucking arms from under the fucking the bed, pulling, like, trying to.
I'm still afraid of arms under the bed.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not afraid. And now I'm more scared now that Sean mentioned those two words, wet hands. Wet hands. Arms from under the bed's one thing. Wet, glistening hands.
And Daniel, listen to the Foley on that, because that smacking noise after it just misses her on the ground, and how they framed it too. Like, it's a really effective shot with those extended hands. Yeah, I thought it was really, really great.
Oh, how the hand extends. That's totally the thing, by the way. That's the tongue coming out of the head, wrapping around the chair leg, and as the head drags itself around. Yeah, that was, I forgot about that little, because you think they're out of it, and then that arm, it does the whole Stretch Armstrong
Yeah, there's
thing.
like an effect. Sound effect to it.
Okay, so Daniel, overall, how did you feel about your return to the gate after all this time?
Sorry, I kind of did my little recap a few minutes ago, but yeah, just to say it again.
It's fine.
And this is not just because I know Terry's out there and might have listened to this and,
sure.
You know, have his ways. No, again, like, I thought there was so much of this that was so good, and there's a reason that it stuck with me all these years. And yeah, like I said, I'm glad that I watched it then, and I'm glad I watched it again now. So it was really good food for thought. And you know, there's something special about the movie, even if it's not whatever the best movie in the world. So
therapy is therapy, Daniel.
Yeah.
So before we say goodbye to our listeners at home, where can they find you, Daniel?
Oh, I am at danielhwilson.com. So you can go there, and I got all my books and short stories are listed where to find them. And of course, you can always email me, you know, if you got a problem or if you have something nice to say. Either way.
Yeah, bring the gate hate to danielhwilson.com or the love and light.
Yeah, the love and the light.
Yeah. Well, thank you for opening up your childhood to the scrutiny of the Unkind Rewind, Daniel.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This was a hoot.
Yeah, no, had
Thanks,
a blast. Man. Thanks. You've just listened to another installment of the Unkind Rewind podcast, mining and potentially ruining your childhood for content, one film at a time. Unkind Rewind is a Munchcast production and can be ingested wherever you listen to podcasts and on the Unkind Rewind YouTube channel. Music for this and every other episode of Unkind Rewind was composed by Divorcio Suave. Rate and review Unkind Rewind on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, Yelp, IMDb, Consumer Reports, Google Reviews, and TripAdvisor. Links to all of our social media accounts are in our show notes, but you'll find us as at Unkind Rewind Pod on nearly every social media platform that makes sense. If you had a question, concern, complaint, or positive feedback, you can email the podcast at unkindrewindpod@gmail.com, or you can join the lively Munchcast Discord to discuss this or any other episode of the Unkind Rewind with like-minded people. This dialogue with the pod may just make it into the next week's ep, so chat away. The Unkind Rewind Patreon will be coming soon, so start squirreling that pocket change away. Thank you for listening to another Unkind Rewind.